Obviously, yes.
So,
Mayor
yes,
Seaman.
Mayor Seaman is here.
Councilmember Castellano.
Here.
Councilmember Moulton is absent. Councilmember Arroyo.
Here.
Councilmember Bauer.
Here.
And Councilmember Burgell.
Here.
All right, would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we are going to do the mayor's announcements. We have several proclamations today, and we are going to start with, okay, you do have it. A1 is the Special Olympics Northern California Torch Run, and I believe Mark Wheatley is here to receive it, and Councilmember Burgell is going to read that.
Thank you. Would you like to come forward, Teresa, too, and Gregory? You don't have to. We'd like to honor you. So, City of Eureka Proclamation. In recognition of 2022 inaugural Humboldt County Law Enforcement Torch Run in Eureka to support Special Olympics Northern California, June 7th, 2022. Whereas Special Olympics has been changing lives and attitudes for over 54 years and today is the largest world sports organization for people with intellectual disabilities in over 200 counties, and whereas law enforcement officers from around the world have logged over 500,000 miles running in the Law Enforcement Torch Run to support Special Olympics since 1981, and whereas 2022 marks the 25th anniversary of the Law Enforcement Torch Run in Northern California, and we will be celebrating the inaugural Torch Run in Humboldt County on June 15th, and whereas since 1997, law enforcement in Northern California have raised over $20 million in support of athlete programs, making the annual Torch Run the largest public awareness and grassroots fundraiser for Special Olympics. And whereas the City of Eureka enthusiastically supports the efforts of Special Olympics to deliver essential health, wellness, and sports programs, to promote social inclusion, to end bullying and discrimination, and to join people with and without disabilities together to compete as teammates in unified sports. And whereas the City of Eureka wishes to inspire greatness in our local athletes and commends the efforts of our Eureka police officers demonstrating their moral strength and courage as guardians of the flame in support of Special Olympics Northern California. Now, therefore, I, Kim Burgell, that's my name, on behalf of the Mayor Susan Seaman and the Eureka City Council, do now hereby proclaim June 15th, 2022 as Torch Run Day and encourage our community to join with all participating law enforcement personnel throughout Humboldt County in support of Special Olympics Northern California.
You want to take the proclamation from Kim? Yeah, just give it to you. Go and take it.
Thank you so much. Oh, everybody.
Absolutely. She wants to take a picture with you.
This one.
Make America great again. Woo! Thank you.
So I want to thank the council, Mayor, for sponsoring this proclamation, and just to let the public know that this is the 25th year. The Torch Run is the largest fundraiser for Special Olympics nationally. So this is the 25th year of the Torch Run, and it is actually an international event. This is the first time we've had it in Humboldt County. So this is our inaugural event. And I really have to just start off by thanking your police chief and your police staff for all the help. They've really stepped up here and are help making this come together. So this is going to happen on Wednesday, June 15th, 12:30. We will start at the Adorney Center, and we will make our way through the Old Town area, and we will end on the boardwalk at Coast Guard Plaza. and we'll take a drone picture of the crowd. And so we invite all of you to be there. And I know it's not the greatest time of day, and Wednesday's not the best day for the event. But what happens is for the summer games, which this year moves from UC Davis to University of Santa Clara on the 24th of June. So on June 12th, this is the kickoff from Sacramento. So just like the Olympics, the torch will be making its way around through all the counties. So Humboldt County's Day is June 15th, and you guys are going to be the host city for our inaugural event. So I really want to thank you. We invite the community to come out there and be participants. Law enforcement are the guardians of the flame. They'll be the ones that carry the torch through town. And we ask everyone in the community to come out and help support Special Olympics. So with that, I want to introduce a couple. First, I'll introduce my brother, who is named Greg, and he's been a Special Olympic athlete for many years. Greg had a brain injury from a car accident many, many years ago. And then this is Teresa Fisher, who Buster Posey does not have a greater fan in the world than Teresa Fisher. And she has got such a wicked 3-point shot that I've seen her like have gyms come to their feet over it. So Steph Curry would be admiring her shot. So it's a sweet thing to see. So she's an awesome basketball player and softball player, and she will be one of our princesses for our event. So thank you very much for inviting us, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully on the 15th.
Thank you for everything that you're doing to put this together. And I checked my calendar. It is on my calendar right now. So we'll see you there.
Thank you. Wait, hope for a sunny day.
We're not sugar. Bye-bye. See you later. And now, as I occasionally do, I recognized that I skipped right over the report out of closed session. So we're going to just jump in the middle of the mayor's report, and we'll let you do your... Thank you very much.
I would have reminded you eventually.
I
but,
know.
we do have something to report out of closed session today on a motion by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Councilmember Arroyo. The council voted 4 yeses, 1 absent, Councilmember Moulton, to authorize the city attorney to initiate litigation against the County of Humboldt and the Humboldt County Auditor Controller.
Thank you very much. We are now going to return to our mayor's announcements, and A2 is National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. I see Lynn McKenna is here, and that proclamation will be read by Councilmember Bauer.
Thank you. This is in recognition of National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, June 2022. Whereas today there are more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, a figure that is expected to grow to as many as 13 million by 2050 if scientists don't develop a cure or an effective treatment. And whereas 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia, it kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. Between 2002 and 2019, death from heart disease has decreased 7.3%, while deaths from Alzheimer's disease has increased 145%. And whereas more than 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias, in 2021, these caregivers provided more than 16 billion hours of care, valued at nearly 272 billion. And whereas Alzheimer's disease is a local issue, our friends and neighbors need access to support services and resources to lessen the disease's impacts. In Humboldt County, it is estimated that about 3,384 people currently live with Alzheimer's and related dementias. There are another 7,600 caregivers who are caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. And whereas in 2020, COVID-19 contributed to a 17% increase in Alzheimer's and dementia deaths. And whereas fewer than 1 in 5 Americans are familiar with mild cognitive impairment, MCI, which can be an early stage of Alzheimer's, 90% of physicians say it's important to diagnose MCI due to Alzheimer's, but over half say they are not fully comfortable making that diagnosis. And whereas during June, the Alzheimer's Association invites Humboldt County residents to participate in the longest day on June 21st, held annually on the summer solstice. The longest day invites participants to fight the darkness of Alzheimer's through a fundraising activity of their choice or by wearing purple. Now, therefore, I, Scott Bauer, on behalf of the Eureka City Council, do hereby proclaim June Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. The Council thanks the Alzheimer's Association for providing services to people and families coping with dementia.
And while we're waiting for Lynn to talk, I just want to say that the work that you do is so important. For so long, I've championed for childcare, but we see families all the time who have to take time off work and are unable to work because they're caring for parents who have
parents or grandparents.
parents
right.
and grandparents.
So yes, I am the advocacy chairperson for our region, which includes Humboldt and Del Norte County. And so one of my responsibilities is to bring awareness to Alzheimer's. So I compare Alzheimer's to AIDS. Back when AIDS was first coming around and nobody wanted to talk about it, it was a very taboo subject. Alzheimer's is sort of the same type of thing. People don't feel comfortable talking about it in public, don't feel comfortable acknowledging that a family member has it or that they possibly could have it. So education is key. If you suspect you have it, you need to make an appointment with your physician and take somebody with you. Sometimes you have to advocate intensely to get them to do the test for mild cognitive impairment. And as the proclamation said, many doctors also need to be educated. So June itself is Brain Awareness Month. We all hear about a healthy heart diet and what we need to do to keep our heart healthy. If you keep your heart healthy, you're going to keep your brain healthy because all of our organs are interconnected. So a healthy heart is also a healthy brain. And there are several, there's 10 warning signs. So I gave everybody a packet and I have the 10 warning signs if anybody else in the audience would like a copy of it. We all sometimes forget. We forget where we put our car keys. We walk into a room, forget why we did, what we were in there for. That is not really Alzheimer's. That's not dementia. It's just there's an aging process. Sometimes we've got too many things on our mind. So if you look at the pamphlet with the 10 warning signs, it tells you what it is, and then it tells you if it is or is not a true symptom of potential dementia. So again, we encourage you to wear purple throughout the month of June, especially on June 21st, and we'll be having more publicity and things about the longest day. So I want to thank the council for acknowledging this problem, and hopefully as we work together and support the people in our community and make aware there is help. There's a 24/7 toll-free hotline, Senior Resource Center, Redwood Area Action Agency, Area 1 Agency have programs that can help you. And please, if you think you have that inclination or you're worried about it or you know a family member that's heading in that direction, please reach out. We are here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next item is Pride Month. That's going to be read by Councilmember Castellano. And do we have anybody here to receive the Pride Month proclamation online or in-house? Excellent. All right. You can stand there and Councilmember Castellano.
Great. Okay. This is the City of Eureka proclamation in recognition of Pride Month, June 2022. Whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming for many Americans. Some of the most inspiring moments in our history have arisen from the various civil rights movements that have brought one group after another. And whereas in the movement toward equal rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, queer, intersex, LGBTQIA people, a historic turning point occurred on June 28, 1969 in New York City with the onset of the Stonewall riots. And whereas during these riots, LGBTQIA citizens rose up and resisted police harassment that arose out of discriminatory criminal laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. In the 4 decades since, civil rights for LGBTQIA people have grown substantially, and LGBTQIA pride celebrations have taken place around the country every June to commemorate the beginning of the Stonewall riots. And whereas California has been a leader in advancing the civil rights of its LGBTQIA citizens, and while further progress is needed, it is important to recognize and celebrate the substantial gains that have been achieved. And whereas the City of Eureka recognizes and celebrates the steps forward our nation has made, but understands the challenges and struggles for full equality continue for Eureka residents and visitors, including those in its lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, allied community. Now, therefore, I, Leslie Castellano, on behalf of Mayor Susan Seaman and the Eureka City Council, hereby proclaim June 2022 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer, Intersex, and Allies Pride Month.
Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Ty Parker. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the president of the board for Queer Humboldt. Here at Queer Humboldt, we are honored just to be recognized and acknowledged in the month of Pride by the City of Eureka for the continuing work that we are doing. And I think it's great that we did mention the Stonewall riots because we've come so far since then, but there's still work to do. And so I'm really excited that we are moving into a direction that I can be proud of, to say that I live in the millennium I live in and whatnot. And I'd also like to urge everyone, as it is a recognition of Pride Month, to donate your labor, time, or money if you can to our local Pride or LGBT businesses and organizations here locally. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last proclamation today is Juneteenth, and that will be read by Councilmember.
Great. Do we have someone online who will be receiving the proclamation? Okay. Okay. All right. So this proclamation is in recognition of Juneteenth, June 19th, 2020. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the enslaved people in Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation to June 19th, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. And whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation. And whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. And whereas City of Eureka offices will be closed Monday, June 20th in observance of Juneteenth, and whereas Black Humboldt will be hosting a weekend celebration beginning June 16th through June 20th, featuring a wide variety of Black curated events and projects. Now, therefore, I, Natalie Arroyo, on behalf of the Eureka City Council, hereby declare Sunday, June 19th, 2022, Juneteenth Day in Eureka, and urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and city.
If we don't have anybody here from Black Humboldt, can I ask Councilmember Castellano, do you know more about the event that's going to be held? Someplace people can find more information?
Sure. Oh, and I think Mo from Black Humboldt is jumping on momentarily. So I'll try to stall until then.
Excellent.
But just saying it's going to be taking place in Arcata this year on the plaza. And, in past years, I can't speak too much to this year, but if it's, there's great musical acts and food and speakers and vendors throughout the day. So it's a great opportunity to come out and support Black-owned businesses in the community.
I have some more information. I pulled up the website if that's helpful. Just while we're waiting for Mo in case they're able to join. So blackhumboldt.com has information about the 2022 Juneteenth celebration. And I was excited to see that this year there are going to be a number of movies at the North Coast Repertory Theater in Eureka. So that's the component that's here. And I'm excited to see some of the film screening. And so that can be found at blackhumboldt.com/2022 Juneteenth celebration. But I think it's probably easiest to just go to blackhumboldt.com and navigate to it from there. And wonderful. Mo, we just read the proclamation, and I wanted to ask you if you'd like to. Did Mo just join right then? Okay. No problem. I know sometimes if you're watching remotely, there's a slight delay too, so.
Mo, are you able to hear us through Zoom?
Mo's having trouble hearing, but I just told Mo they're on in case they can't hear.
Well, maybe it will be helpful if I keep talking so Mo is able to hear something while trying to get the sound figured out. So I'm going to, Mo, feel free to jump in whenever you're able. I am just trying to make it so that you're able to hear. So I was mentioning that there's a couple films being shown in Eureka and then a number of events in Arcata that are planned. So the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, there'll be events. And then a handful of films being shown in Eureka at North Coast Repertory Theater.
Will there be anything virtual this year?
I don't see anything virtual, but it looks like there are a number of in-person events.
Unmute. That is what's going on. Okay.
Are we figuring
All
it
right, Mo, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, that's
Tanya.
LaTanya.
Yes, thank you, LaTanya.
I'm sorry. Were you waiting for me to say something?
No, we're looking for Mo.
We were waiting for our speaker, Mo, and she has rejoined us. So let's see.
I couldn't hear you, so I raised my hand to let you know I couldn't hear you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you so much for letting us know, LaTanya.
Thank you. All right, so Mo is back on. Mo is here.
Thank you very much. Hey, Mo.
I am here and I can hear you all. Hello. Thank you.
So we just read your proclamation, and we talked a little bit about the events. We were reading off of the website, but if you have anything you'd like to share, anything you're particularly excited about this time, this is your chance.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just say thanks for putting this on the agenda and taking the time to really create space to create a tradition of Juneteenth in Humboldt County. It's so impactful and meaningful for our micro Black community to have this representation and to have the support and allyship of the non-Black community. And this year we just have 4 days of events. A lot of them are community-wide. So this is a chance for folks to get involved with Black Humboldt that aren't a part of the Black or Brown community, and as well as take part in the culture that comes with our events and Juneteenth as a whole. as well as we will be holding at least one exclusive space every day of the festival for our Black and Brown community to have time to connect with one another. And so I urge folks to check out the schedule and see what they're interested in, and to try to attend as many things as you can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I read the proclamation, so I figured I'd respond. But anyway, thank you so much. And we'll make sure to send you the proclamation or arrange for you to pick it up.
Thank you. Okay, so I just have a very brief report today. I just wanted to mention that this afternoon I got to have lunch with 12 really wonderful kids from Eureka High School. Jim Ritter and Mr. Parker, I believe, brought them here, and they got to go to a Board of Supervisors meeting. They went to visit the elections office. Several of them had just turned 18 and were able to vote. And then they got to end their day here just talking about city government and what we do and what it's like to serve on council. And it was really, it was a fun, engaging group. Councilmember Arroyo attended with us, and looking forward all the time to having those opportunities to work with our the young kids who are coming up and are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So we also did have Sierra come, who works with our youth council, and talked about our youth council. One of the students was a youth council member last year. So it was a good time, and we always enjoy doing things like that. Thank you to City Manager Slattery for letting me pull him away from his desk with no notification at all. And he came in and told great stories. And that is it for my mayor's report today. So we will move on now to the public comment period. This is the time for members of the public who wish to be heard on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Our policy is to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody in-house who would like to make...
Good evening. I think this is probably only the second time I've been down here where I'm going to start with something positive. But you guys keep doing this to me. I want to commend you all and thank you for recognizing the woman that was promoting Alzheimer's awareness. My father died from Alzheimer's, and I believe that the more we can educate people on the whole thing, the better. And so thank you for publicly recognizing that. And the other thing was the Special Olympics. My nephew is autistic, and I have a good friend in Canada, ironically in Humboldt, Canada, who was autistic, and both of them were, their parents were advised to write them off when they were young and put them in a care home and just forget about them. And fortunately, my nephew, my sister, and her husband went to work and worked with him, and now he's a fairly successful country singer. And my friend in Canada is one of the best writers I know. I'm the administrator of an international writers site, and he's one of our best contributors. So I know that there is hope for people with autism and whatnot. And matter of fact, my friend in Canada is an active participant in the Special Olympics. So kudos for recognizing that too. Moving on from that, now that I've made everybody smile, I'm looking forward to June 9th or Juneteenth or whatever it is too, because every year I get disappointed, but I eagerly anticipate what I've always envisioned that day being, which is a day for every descendant of a black slave to publicly thank every descendant of someone who fought and died and worked to free them. Because our country is the only country in the history of mankind that was formed and freed the slaves in less than 100 years. And we are constantly criticized and denigrated as if we were the ones that invented the whole thing. And I just am waiting for us to get recognized for the fact that we ended slavery faster than any civilization in the entire history of mankind. And beyond that, I got another half a minute. So I went down to do a cleanup with the Pack Out Green team the other day. And, we got a ton and a half of garbage and 200 needles out of one camp. And those needles didn't come from Walgreens. Those needles came from Hatcher. And I think you all need to really, really look at your support of that organization. It needs to end.
Thank you. Next up.
My name is Charles Wilson. This is Military Appreciation Month, or something similar to that. Reminds me of an incident that happened 55 years ago on June 8th, when the USS Liberty, a surveillance ship, an unarmed surveillance ship, was loafing along off from Israel. They were listening to the Israeli. This was about the fourth day of the 1976 Six-Day War, and Israel was planning to break their truce with Syria and attack the Golan Heights. So the Israelis didn't like them listening in on what they were planning on doing. So anyway, the USS Liberty was flying the American flag. It had U.S. Liberty painted on the back of the boat. So I think it's a 450-foot ship there. It had its number, the ship number on the bow was written in English letters, or in other words, numbers, not Arabic. So it wouldn't be confused with Egypt or anything like that. And let's see, it was loafing along about 5 knots. The maximum it could go was 18. Now, 2 Israeli torpedo boats, their radar guys, they're presumably trained to know what they're doing, said it was going at 30 knots, therefore it must be a warship. So they go out to attack it. They had a couple of jets go out there. They bombed it with 1,000-pound bombs and napalm, and the torpedo boats fired 5 torpedoes. One of them hit 34 American soldiers were killed, 171 injured, and anyway, it makes you wonder how much you want to trust government. Thank you. They called them out, and they were going to. McNamara, the Secretary of Defense, called back all the help so that they wouldn't be helped. Thank you.
Okay, this is Genevieve Wilson. We all talk about slave here and there. A slave means you have to do something that you doesn't want to, and you need to justify it. So wearing a mask, taking a vaccine that you don't need to, you have natural immunity, that's a slave. So what kind of slave is that? Black slave, white slave, all kind of slave. We are slave by the globalists. Okay, by the way, have you heard about hybrid immunity? Hybrid immunity means you take the vaccine, you might have immunity, and then you have a breakthrough cases, and you still get sick. That you have an immunity. Oh, that's fun and dandy, hybrid immunity. So anyway, by the way, just you need to remember you have natural immunity. God give you a natural immunity, and God give you a nose to breathe. If the mask doesn't work, it doesn't work, you don't need to. My point is, no, don't force people. And now we talk about Humboldt County. They talk about climate changes. So they want to build a city with 250,000 people, big city. And now you worry about the climate change, the pollution. You build a big city, and then you kind of worry about the pollution. That to me is contradict to each other. Every place have a different place, different specialty. Humboldt County is whatever the population, we should respect that. That's all I'm gonna say. And we all always need to respect our Constitution. Okay, go by your Constitution and common law. So I sing my old song. Love and freedom, everyone desire. Hate and tyranny, everyone despite. Heavenly love will be back in time if all the patriots united and compliant. So we all to think about that and be love. Love will prevail. In this situation, I hope no lockdown coming back, monkeypox, and syphilis. Fear is a real virus. Okay? Take care of yourself, and we all respect each other, and that's the only thing. Love will prevail. That's all I want to say. Keep on doing that. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in-house that wants to speak during public comment? If not, we'll move over to Zoom. And I know LaTanya is...
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I do have minutes to get to you guys, and I haven't forgotten. I hope that when I submit in the chat, which is now disabled for me, and through the 3-minute speaking, I hope that's something to start with. In terms of what the voting, I did have a chance to vote. I am impressed with the way the candidates are able to advertise about themselves. And as far as helping out with different or events or groups, I would like to be a part of that. And I will contact or submit my request in writing. And in terms of the behavior of the people in the city, I got to tell you, you're pretty clever. I'm no psychology major, but I'll do my very best to try to keep an open mind and do not react quickly. But I'm not a very mean person. No, I just like my family a lot. And I thank you very much for allowing me to be able to participate in the meeting today. And I look forward to participating more. And I do need to hear from my son, Jeremy Jacob, so that I can determine whether or not we're going to see our family member graduate away across the country and on the East Coast. I do need to see my son, Jeremy Jacob, because we were supposed to be driving down together. If that's a possibility, I need to know. Thank you. In the message.
Thank you. So next we have Ash.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hello, this is Ash Teeter with the Humboldt Freedom Coalition, HumboldtFC.com. As you may know, I've said it before, my wife lost her job with the city sometime late last year. And so, as far as I know, the policy that did that still stands, and it stands in stark contrast with many of the messages of inclusivity that some of the council members post online. So I also see posts about meetings to encouraging people to gather and clean up Eureka, and that kind of seems akin to putting like a Band-Aid over a bullet wound when it comes to the needle litter we see, like a previous speaker mentioned with the just handing out needles to people at will. That might be something the city might want to back away from. A council member told me before that they were too busy to look at a lot of pressing world news and events outside of the mainstream narrative. And with this in mind, I'd like to read some headlines I found of interest. In Peru, 5G antennas were taken down because the public had become aware of their dangers. And I guess they got enough people aware of it, they actually did something about it. The same thing happened in France. But this instance, it was over like a cattle rancher found that they were damaging the health of his cattle. So I guess that might be something we can look at locally for environmental concerns. The new Novak shot, COVID-19 vaccine, efficiency against death is negative 9%, while against COVID, it's claimed to be 90% effective. Or the negative percentage for death. An inconvenient truth for globalists, Arctic ice is at a 30-year high for all the climate change stuff going on. The U.S. government lost a landmark lawsuit finding that no quality control in available vaccines has really taken place for the past 32 years. In Canada, 95% of the monkeypox cases are found to actually be shingles, and some doctors suspect that the cause might be from the COVID shot. My grandma actually got shingles right after getting the Moderna within a month or two. In immunology professors on why data shows that COVID infections are occurring more among boosted Americans. That's something to look at. I don't know how the work rate has been since the city's all fully vaccinated and boosted. If there's been a lot of reinfections there. CDC admits that well over 2/3 of Americans are not fully vaccinated. So what they did there is they claimed.
Thank you very much. Your time is up.
Percent. Sorry, what was that?
Your time is up. That was 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else online who is, if you'd raise your hand or otherwise let us know that you would like to make a comment?
I don't see anyone.
A. Christensen?
Is he?
Yep, I just wanted to ask again if you guys could work on getting the Eureka Transit bus service to run past 6 p.m. That would be great so that people can get home from work. That's all. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. I did see a couple folks come in. Were you here for public comment? Do we have anybody else in-house that needs to make a public comment? Okay, come on up.
Good.
Yes, Jared.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tyler Semich, and I'm a senior at Eureka High School. And my question is, due to the Cal Poly Humboldt opening and the student population growing, what is the city council on dealing with the housing and infrastructures?
So during public comment, we don't respond to questions, but
Okay.
you're welcome to reach out to any of us
Okay.
and have a conversation about that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Come on up.
My name is Ty. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for all you do, and you guys are doing a great job, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you very much. All right. Do we have anybody else online? Because that would be a great way to end it. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and close public comment, and we will move on to public hearings. This is the 2022-23 budget adoption. And we have Director Millar here, who's been working very hard and diligently and answering lots of questions. Although he did pretend like he forgot there was a council meeting today. He didn't fool me, though.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Tonight is the last budget presentation, unfortunately. What we're going to talk about for tonight, we're going to look at reserves by major fund, and then we're going to look at reserve funding strategies.
Excuse me, can we? Can I do a point of order? There's too much noise in the audience, and I'm having a difficulty
hearing. Yes.
Hearing. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's going to be a relatively short presentation. We're going to end with hopefully adopting the budget. So a few notes as I begin. Reserves can also mean fund balance, and that can also mean working capital. I might use these interchangeably. They pretty much mean the same thing. Some really strict accountants might argue with me, but for this purpose, they all should work. And then I'll be showing reserves not only as a dollar amount, but also in months. Why do I do that? Because we really want to understand how much we have in fund balance relative to how large the operation is. So tonight, I'll be showing you operational expenditures. This is mainly salaries and benefits, supplies and materials, consulting fees, and some smaller capital outlays. It really highlights our core services. So things like projects or capital projects and debt service payments and transfer, those are not included as operational expenditures. And last but not least, some of these are projections or forecasts. So I cannot guarantee that all of this data will be the same at the end of next fiscal year. So to begin, reserves by fund. So that's a lot of information right there. So I'm going to kind of pull this back in a minute, but I'm going to show you what I showed you in last year's budget and then what's in this year's budget. And I think that's important because it kind of compares how we forecast and how accurate these forecasts are. I just want to point out that in last year's 21-22 budget, in that first chart, at the time that was a forecast, but then down below that 21-22 line, it's not exact, but given the fact that it's June and our fiscal year starts in July, we pretty much know the numbers by now. So to kind of break this down again, right there, that's the operating budget. So this is the water fund. That's how much is allocated just for operations, not projects or anything like that. This is showing you where we began the year. So at the beginning of fiscal year 2021, we had about $11 million in fund reserve in the water fund. And that represents about 19 months. We ended the year with about 10.1 million, which represents 17.6 months. So that's kind of how these charts work. Also, that first line, the confidence is very high because I just, remember that, at this time we're pretty much through the fiscal year. So that line is pretty accurate. The following line is a lower confidence because that is mainly a projection or a forecast. So going back to the water fund, I do want to point out that last year we forecasted about 11 months. If you look on that right side, I think, about 11 months of reserve in the water fund at the end of 21-22. As of now, that's actually about 12 months. So that's a good increase. And then I also want to point out that we had 19 months back in July of 20, but today we have 8 months. 8 months is still good, and it still achieves our goal of 6 months. It also was anticipated that our fund or working capital would go down in the water fund. 19 months is more than we need. And by dipping into that working capital, we were able to lower the rate increases during the last rate study. Next, we have the Wastewater Fund. So first of all, I'd like to point out how our forecasts did. So last year, we anticipated about 9.7 months. Right now, we're looking at just over 9, pretty close. And then, we went from 12 months back in July of 20, and now we're just under 8. We are getting close to that 6-month threshold, but it's still doing well, and we do have a rate study in progress. Next, I will look at the internal service funds as a whole. So that includes equipment operations, risk management, infotech, internal operations or government and administrative services, and then facilities operation. Together, it's a pretty significant budget. We're looking at $10+ million, which back at the beginning of July of 20, we actually had 2.6 months of working capital. Typically in internal service funds, you don't hold reserves. And the idea is that these funds should only recoup what they spend. But thankfully, we did have reserves in these funds because they helped us kind of manage the large cuts we saw at the beginning of fiscal year 2021, when we thought our revenue streams in the general fund were essentially getting drastically decreased. So at the end of 2021, because we dipped into those reserves, we actually went into the red. And then at the time, during last year's budget, that did not improve. But thankfully, as of now, we're expecting to be back in the black. And then at the end of 22-23, we're getting close to 1 month. So we're not back at that 2.6 months, but we are going in the right direction. And this was a kind of a last-ditch effort to avoid actually laying people off in the general fund. So finally, we have the general fund. So just to begin, last year's budget projected about 2.9 months in reserves. Right now, we're looking at about 3.2 at the end of this fiscal year. And then going forward, about 3.4 months. This is a large improvement. Back in July of 20, we hit a low of about 1.3 months. So today, even though we're not at that 6-month marker, we've improved greatly, and we're probably looking at more working capital as a percentage of the general fund budget in the last 10 or 20 years. So, things are, doing very well. So this leads into how do we increase that number? So this exercise actually was a little more involved than I thought, and a lot harder, or it was a little bit harder to identify what the best strategy is. So tonight I'm just going to throw out some potential to kind of get us used to this idea of, building reserves to hit a target. So whenever you forecast, you always build in assumptions, and those are important because if your assumptions are wrong, typically your models are worthless. So I'm going to cross my fingers, and I'm going to project that the general fund will grow at about 2% per fiscal year. And when I say 2%, I'm talking about the operational expenses. The other assumption is the target goal is a 6-month operating reserve. And then all of this would begin in July of 23, since we're about to adopt the 22-23 budget. So here's the first strategy. This is making annual contributions at a flat amount and keeping that amount flat for the entire time period. And here I've laid out 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. And you can see that to hit 6 months of reserves within 5 years would require just under $2 million. And then to hit it in 20 years without any growth in these contributions, that would require about $824,000. And you can see that I've added the end amount because what you would pay in year 1 is what you would pay in year 5, 10, 15, or 20. It's really my opinion that the first choice, 5 years, is not on the table because at the moment that would exceed our surplus. But all of these other options we could consider. The next strategy it would be 2% growth. So this would be growth that matches the general fund growth. So here, the amounts do go or start out lower than the last strategy. But again, I think the first option is not currently on the table. And then my concern with the 10-year plan is that this end amount might become tricky to hit in the future. So at the moment, I don't think this is something we should consider, but I'm open to other considerations. So I think the 15 and 20 year in this scenario have a lot of potential. And then finally, here is the third strategy, and this is a 3.3% growth rate. And the reason I came up with 3.3% is because that's the rate of increase that allows these contributions to stay even. So even if you adopt a 2% growth rate, every year that contribution has less weight because at the same time your general fund expenditures are growing as well. So if you just match 2% with the 2% growth of the general fund, every expenditure loses a small amount of value. But when you increase that to 3.3%, every contribution is equal in or relative to the size of the general fund. So in this scenario, again, 5 years is very aggressive. And if you look at that end amount, it's even harder to hit. So, my suggestion is to select either 10, 15, or 20 years. Or maybe I removed 10. I'm sorry. No, that same theory as the last one. The 1.3 might get difficult to hit. So I'm sorry. So 15 or 20 years. So when I put these all together, or I combine all the ones I think we should move forward with, if I look at the time in years and I look at the average based on those options, I think anything close to the average, which is 16.4 years, is a good target. I think at the minimum we should do 16. If we want to be more aggressive, we do less than 16 years. And then in terms of the amounts, I think something that reflects the average of both the beginning and end amount for all these different options for a total of $927,000 is also a good midpoint. So I think instead of picking one of these, by just going for that overall average, I think that builds in some flexibility. I think, really to build up our reserves to that 6-month threshold, that it requires both discipline and coming back every year and doing the same kind of analysis and saying, okay, what works best for us? And I think anything within this realm of possibilities, I think, as of today, we might start with a higher beginning amount because we have that available as a surplus. And then maybe that works out for a few years. And then maybe down the road, we might adjust to doing a lower amount, but having that amount grow over time. What makes this tricky is that what if the general fund grows faster than 2%? Then all of this goes out the window. What if expenditure growth is 1% and revenues grow at 0%? You're going to have a similar issue. So all of this, because it's so far into the future, will really require both being dedicated to preserving a surplus, and then also just year over year saying that this is what our goal is, and doing things that reflect those goals. So last but not least, we have that concludes my list of strategies. And then at this point, I'm ready to adopt the budget. I would like to make one correction, which didn't make it on this slide deck. The city attorney's budget, I don't know if I can build this into the motion. Is that?
The change.
Yeah.
We would amend the resolution, adopt a resolution that amends the budget to reflect that dollar amount.
So I had an oversight. The city attorney's budget is more than she needs by about $110,000. That was my mistake. I'd like to transfer that into our non-departmental division within Fund 650, and that's where the city attorney lives. So if we can make that change tonight, that would be helpful. And to her benefit, her budget showed a growth rate of like 62% when I went over departments. That true figure is more like 39%. So sorry, Autumn.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Do we need to do a separate motion for that one, for that piece right there?
It can just be made with the motion, just as part of the main motion.
Okay. So I guess first we'll say, do we have any questions for Director Millar? Councilmember Castellano.
I just have a thank you for all of your work. That was very kind of fascinating analysis of the reserves. And in relationship to that, I appreciate making a decision this year, but is that also the kind of thing that we would potentially create a policy around that then we could implement for future years? Because it looks like, you're talking about, a 16-year plan. So is that something that would, we would potentially give input to be brought back at a future meeting?
Yeah, so I actually plan on coming back, I think, late August or early September with an actual policy. But there was mention of a 6-month target. So I kind of wanted to lay out how we could achieve that that threshold.
So if I understand your question, Councilmember Castellano, it's really about preserving this goal beyond our years here. So when we set the policy, that will be carried on into future?
I don't know if you can set that in stone, but I think it's worth the effort.
Can always be changed by future council.
That's what I was thinking. Just make it a little bit more difficult. So they would have to make a point to do it. Okay. Councilmember Arroyo.
On a related note, I understand that our Finance Advisory Committee had was interested in helping make recommendations around that policy. So do you still see a need for that? As you were giving your presentation, I was thinking, oh, well, if we're already kind of committing to this goal, do you still see a need for a policy that guides that?
Yeah, and I would like to go back to the Finance Advisory Committee and kind of lay out the same set of options and get their opinions, just to supplement whatever I hear from you guys as well as staff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Do we have any comments from the audience, either in-house or on Zoom?
This is a public hearing, so if you can open
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry.
No
I
worries.
forgot it's a public hearing. I'll now open the public hearing. Does anybody have any comments for this public hearing? Do we have any online?
Can you see me?
LaTanya has one.
Yes.
Hey, LaTanya, we can hear you.
I'm a vulnerable person. I don't do things the way they do around here, and I need some help because I can't see everything I'm supposed to be seeing. Yeah. If someone's supposed to be hurting me and I don't see it, I need someone to help me see it. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I don't know how to teach math. No. It doesn't mean that I don't know anything about, I don't know much about the spirit realm. No, I don't. No. I mean, I'll just know about the Holy Spirit, which is a good one. And people, the Holy Spirit don't
So
hurt you.
this is a public hearing, so we need to stick to the topic at hand, which is budget.
Okay. We need to put prayer back in schools. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
No, LaTanya.
No comments?
Good.
I will close the public hearing then, and I will bring it back to council for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Councilmember Castellano.
Sorry. I make a motion to adopt the following resolutions. a resolution of the City of Eureka adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and a resolution of the Eureka Public Financing Authority adopting the budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
I'll second.
As amended.
Yeah,
As amended.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second that too.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All right, everybody vote.
Councilmember Bauer has two lit up.
Oh, Councilmember Burgell has two.
There we go. All right.
It could have been somebody from one of the kids today might have actually left your one if they left your yeah.
4 yes votes. Councilmember Moulton absent. Motion carries.
They're like, you can't vote twice. Nice work. Thank you, Director Millar. You can sleep well tonight. And then get back to work tomorrow. All right. So next up on our agenda is the consent calendar. Anybody need to pull anything? I didn't have any notice of that. All right. Do I have a motion?
So I'll move. Oh,
go ahead.
Do it. I'll second it.
Okay. Councilmember Burgell, seconded by Councilmember Arroyo. Please vote.
Four yes votes. Councilmember Moulton absent. Motion carries.
All right. Moving on to the legislative action correspondence. Do we have anything that we need to send in? I do know there's a letter that was going out from the city. Talk about that.
So yeah, a letter came from Senator McGuire's office discussing support to send a letter in opposition to some of the financial reports that were submitted for the Surface Transportation Board. We initially received correspondence from his office requesting the letter go out, and that was an email. And then earlier today, the office sent out one saying, hold on. And then just before this meeting, we received an updated version of that letter, and I emailed it to the council. And so if there's any action that the council would like to take on that, then we can.
Action is in, do you want us, are we all comfortable with them sending it on our behalf?
I would say this seems very similar to what we were talking about at the last meeting that the council said to move forward with. No, this is slightly different. Autumn gave the tiniest shake of the head.
So,
so it is a little different. It's not, I understand how it's different in nature, but it's on the same topic, I should say.
It is. It's just it's kind of after the fact. Before it was to say to change their decision, and now it's to say don't accept the response from their decision, kind of.
Gotcha. I think it makes sense that we support that. It's for the same intended outcome.
Did everybody get a chance to see the letter and approve it? Okay. All right. So we've got 3.
Staff sees.
We're all good.
They're
so
all
go
good?
ahead and
Okay.
send it.
I only saw 2 nodding heads, so I'll go
No,
for it.
we got
Okay,
four,
now we got-
four
all right.
thumbs up. So thank you very much for working with Senator McGuire's office on that. Any other immediate legislative action items we need to send letters for? If not, we will move on to future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they want to make sure is on a future agenda? All right. We gave them a list, like a real long list a couple weeks ago. So I think that can keep us entertained for a very long time. But then we will move on to the city manager reports, where we will have a vacation rental update.
So thank you, Mayor and Council. Before Lane goes to sleep tonight, he's going to present just a brief update about the vacation rentals, just to refresh you guys' memory. Earlier this year, staff came to you with kind of the status of our vacation dwelling units, and that we had hired a consultant, and we're doing an inventory of them and trying to get everybody into compliance. So Director Millar is here to provide an update about where we're at in that process, and after that, some point in the near future, once we get everybody registered and in compliance, we'll be back to council with discussions about how you guys would like to move forward after that. But Director Millar.
So this is going to be a very short update. So essentially, we're almost ready to go live with the website, and this tool is really important to this process because we want to make it very easy for the operators to both initiate contact with the city, but also to satisfy any owed taxes. And this is the route they will need to take. So essentially, you'll be able to go onto this website. This website is hosted by Granicus, the same people that do our agendas. So you can come on here and you can register. You're just registering for the purposes of paying your taxes. You're not actually getting any sort of permits. And then once you get in and you've identified your address and provided contact information, this is where you can go report and pay your taxes. So this has taken longer than we thought, but there's also a lot of little details that we didn't really think about, and this process forces you to consider what to do if somebody owes a lot but can't pay. So we're gonna have to figure out ways to set up payment plans, and then also just making sure that it's understood that this is the first step in what could be a very long process in terms of paying your TOT, getting your business license, but also getting permitted both through development services and potentially the building department to ultimately be legal to operate. So I believe that we're only a couple weeks away from selecting that first batch of operators, and then based on those operators, we need to send out some letters, and then that will kind of get the ball rolling, and we'll kind of do this process over and over again until we've contacted everybody out there. And again, this same software product also identifies the operators, gives us activity reports. It tells us who's permitted, who's not permitted. So, and that's the product that we adopted, I think, 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So we have all this data, and now we built in a function that allows you to report and pay your taxes. This can also be used not only by vacation rental operators, but also by hotels. So it does provide better customer service for all TOT payers. So that's all I have for tonight.
I have 2 questions, actually.
I just want to expand. The reason the process, as Director Millar explained, is because of staffing levels. We can't go out and inundate everybody and then expect to have all the planning work done that's necessary and have all the inspections done. So we're making it so that we can do this piecemeal and still afford our staff to take care of their other responsibilities when we go through this process.
I have 2 easy questions, actually. Well, maybe. STR at the beginning, what does that stand for? I'm sure I should know. Short-term rental. Okay. I knew I would know it as soon as I saw it. And then the other thing is, when the website is almost ready to go live, is that going to be on our current website or on the... And then we're going to transition it to the new website as well?
They are different platforms. It will homogenize as much as possible. You might see a link on our city's webpage that brings you here. In the future, we would like to do what's called single login or
Okay, so you'll just have a link to this as your own website that's separate from everything else.
Yeah, but it'll be clear that it's also City of Eureka. So
I get it. Okay. Councilmember Bauer.
So I've talked to a few different people who have rentals, and they're nervous about this process. That it's probably more a question for Director Gerving about is there going to be an inspection, of the place? Or they have to be ADA compliant? All those things, which I assume is probably, yeah, you do. But I think as part of this process goes along, there needs to maybe be some idea for people of what to expect. If you want to continue this and have a vacation rental, here's what the process you have to go through. So I'm just, for people's understanding, what to expect.
So I think I've spoken to most of council about this. I think the word's out there now. I think I've signed about 10 VDU applications over that time frame. The initial steps of reaching out to planning and getting that permit process, they'll be well informed as to what potentially could come after that. So I think that just initiating the conversation through the permit process will be able to allow staff to give them the information about what they need in order to be in compliance.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Arroyo.
So I know in our prep for this meeting, I should have asked in more detail. So my understanding of this is that we are seeking to tackle the transient occupancy tax remittal and getting people registered, but not managing the number, whether the host lives on the premises or not, any of those other questions through this process right now.
No, those other questions will come through regulations later once we get everybody into compliance.
Okay.
As far as regulating VDUs.
Because
and VDUs are vacation dwelling units.
I knew that. That's why I was trying to figure out. I was like, there's a V and a D, and I don't understand what STR is. So.
Okay, so this is getting people who are currently operating outside the bounds of the system that's in place to remit tax to get their tax done.
And to be in compliance with our existing ordinance.
Gotcha. And when people receive those letters, will they get information about how to do the business license and all that as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I talked a neighbor through it and realized that I don't have all of the information readily available in my mind. So I realized I knew that they needed a business license, but I didn't know what else they needed. So could you share what people will need?
There are different scenarios, but I guess worst case is that you would, the form, luckily for the VDUs, includes everything that we need to collect for business licenses. So we made small efficiencies that way, where you fill out one form and not two. But you're going to at least have to get a business license, and then depending on where you're located in the zoning, could really dictate what you can do there and how easy it is. So you might have to do a public hearing. You might have to get an inspection to review ADA, I believe. Yeah, she would be the right person to ask. So, but from the finance department, you need the business license and you need to remit your TOT forms every quarter. So,
thank you.
Councilmember Castellano.
Could it be possible to put a checklist on this also, just so that people kind of know this is part of the process, but just so people have a visual representation of, because I could imagine myself going to this and be like, I'm done, or so that people kind of can see okay, you've checked these 2 boxes by filling out this process, and you're going to have to check these 3 boxes, and maybe even with that, how long it might take, or or things like that, so that way people have a sense of what to expect from the process.
So I think the principal planner could explain this more, but there may be multiple checklists, because as we're talking about, there's different regulations in upland, there's different regulations in the coastal zone, there's different regulations in different zoning districts. That checklist could be really cumbersome if it was just one single checklist. So it would have to be, okay, do you live in this and what's your zoning? And here's a checklist. Do you live in this?
Well, the checklist could just be call the planning department and see what regulations you need to follow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a simple thing that people might not even think to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the first message is simply contact us, by telephone, email, or go on here and just put in your information. And once we know your parcel, your address, then we can provide those checklists.
Yeah, and calling planning versus building versus, people just don't know who to call. So those things.
Principal Planner Getz knows everything. So,
well, everybody should just call Principal Planner Getz because she has time to just answer this all day long.
My apologies, Principal Planner Getz.
Any other questions, Councilmember Bauer?
I appreciate this is finally happening. This is great, but I think my big question would be, given our housing needs, when do we cut it off? When do we say, if you're not in 6 months, we're going to create a limit to the number. I think we should create a limit to the number of vacation dwellings we have. When do we, how long are we going to do this before we do that?
I don't want to get the city attorney, Luna, too squirming. Like I said, those regulations will come. I think that we'll know when we go through this letter process as to who's really in and who's really not in, and what kind of, remedies that we have if they continue. We already have remedies in place if they continue and they don't come into compliance, and so those are already set. But I think we need to get to this process before we can talk about the regulations and what those look like and what council desires.
All right. Are we all good now? All right. We'll close out our meeting. It's a big night for some folks. They have things to get to. So we will start with Councilmember Burgell.
Well, let's see. I just have a couple of things. I did a lot of things. I have a couple of meetings coming up that I usually would go to before this meeting, but one's tomorrow with the Humboldt Bay Fire, and then I have a KEEP meeting coming up. But I just want to give you a couple things. The zoo, they're changing their hours for summer, so they're going to be open 10 to 6. And they're making great progress on the Plank House. So if you haven't been over there, that's at the Bear and Coyote exhibit. So if you haven't been over there, head on over and take a look. I'm currently working on a project with DHHS that I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now. And then one thing that I just wanted to say is I got to attend the James Washington track dedication. And I don't know if any of you know James Washington. He's a runner here locally, and he's been a coach for 1,000 years. Well, not that long, but he's been a coach for a really long time. He's an exceptional human being, and he's been fundraising for like 30 years to get this track on board. And so now Arcata High has a track thanks to him and the support of the community. And it was just really awesome to go out and listen to people talk about who he is and what kind of person he is and his dedication to our youth. They even had a guy come all the way from back east that was a former student that said he would match. There's a few more dollars left to be raised, and this guy's going to match any dollar that is raised to support the balance of what the track is going to cost. And then we all ran around the track, in our high heels. It was super fun. And so I just really wanted to give a shout out to James because he's what, when you see the word community, he's certainly one of those people that really shines and is very appreciated by many. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bauer.
Just pretty much the standard set of meetings. I will say that RCEA meetings have been really interesting because we have rules about how much renewables we have to bring online and storage and the global economy and what's going on with supply chains. It's kind of making things difficult, and which is unfortunate. We're all anxious to get wind power and get solar power, and yet you can't get solar panels, especially when you need 500 acres of solar panels or whatever. So it's really interesting and kind of disappointing to watch this. Like, our community is so strongly, it's so trying so hard to reach certain goals, and it's a challenge, and we're falling behind. I think it's been a hard couple weeks. I can't believe what happens in Texas and that's really it's really affected me, just because, I don't know what to say other than we got to do something. So I'll just leave it at that. It's been hard for all of us, and I think we need to have a conversation about it at some point. Thanks.
Councilmember Arroyo.
Well, on that note, I hope this is okay to share, but I reached out to the city manager and EPD about doing another gun buyback, and it sounds like that's in progress. So that's one small thing we can do, and I really encourage us to do everything we can locally to reduce the risk of gun violence, and maybe that looks like some other steps. So I feel really motivated to talk more about that, and how do we really utilize the red flag laws that we have in place. We're a community where people don't get in each other's business, and I think that works to our detriment when it comes to people who could be dangerous. And I think there needs to be some cultural change around identifying those concerns earlier, and the much bigger question around access to guns. So not to say that that's not a big part of it. I was recently interviewed about that, and it caught me off guard, and I think my words were like too gentle. I was like, well, gosh, we need to, move forward with reasonable regulations or something like that. It was just kind of wishy-washy, because I was a little unprepared to talk about what actions we can take on a local level. And I'd like to have that conversation more. And I was also frankly frightened of people who might retaliate about any message related to gun safety and gun control, which is a big part of what we're dealing with as a country and as a community. So, I'll just leave that there. Other business. So Humboldt Transit Authority, at our last meeting, it was pretty normal. Some very administrative items, but I will say that ridership is ticking back up. And so, I know there's a community member who spoke earlier about transit and desires to expand the hours, and with the ridership improving, that is helpful to see. We are just barely meeting the minimum fare box requirements for a lot of the routes. So to be able to sustain the service, minimum ridership, but during COVID, some of that was suspended. And so we're getting back to having enough riders to sustain the routes that we would like to have, and looking to add more service as soon as we can hire and train more drivers. So like every agency, we've had difficulty with recruitment in some parts of the agency, and that has been improving a little bit. So looking to meet that community request soon. And there was something else on my radar, but I just wanted to recognize that Kinetic Weekend was really cool. The Kinetic, what a joy it was to participate in that and to see people out. That Arts Alive, the farmers markets are starting back up in Eureka. The Henderson market started this last week. That's on Thursdays from 10 to 1. So get out there and support local farmers. That was really well attended. So I think people are really enjoying the outdoor events and outdoor event spaces. And I vibrancy return to our community. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Castellano.
Firstly, I just want to speak to, there were some things said during public comment that were grossly inaccurate in terms of usually I don't comment on other people's public comment, but when people say things about that Black people should thank white people on Juneteenth, I just want to say that that's not appropriate, and that slavery is akin to wearing masks. I just want to say that's also not appropriate, And I feel like it's important to say that in this context, because, we don't respond to public comment, but it stands there. And some things I think warrant a response, or at least warrant people saying something about it. And I was really angry hearing that and not being able to respond. And it's really hard sometimes to hear things like that, that I think insult the beauty and progress and joy of celebrations like Juneteenth, and just thanks to the folks who are continuing to move that forward. Let's see, and the things I've been up to, I met with Senator McGuire, with local county arts and culture leaders, so just thankful for that meeting. I hosted a town hall at Jefferson Community Center, and thanks to the folks at Jefferson and the folks that came out, and thanks to City Manager Slattery. It was a really just great discussion. People had their questions answered, and I just appreciated being able to talk to people in that context. Let's see, I hosted or co-hosted a self-advocacy meeting here. And thanks to Assistant City Manager Powell for just helping out and helping set it up and everything. I'm co-organizing a site-specific art festival this weekend called Outer Ruminations. It's out in Lolita. Look it up if you like site-specific art. And gosh, there's another thing happening that was on my list. Oh, yes. Sorry. Calder Johnson and I from NCRT and I are working on a dream parade for Old Town Eureka to happen on August 13th. I've mentioned it before, but we're hosting a meeting on June 7th. If any local businesses or anyone have questions and want to find out about the parade and its routes and things and prior, so that we can just totally be upfront, engage with people's questions about that. We're also going to be kind of flyering the local businesses along the route to let them know. And I really appreciated council members' comments. I just want to let y'all know that there's a great high school group that's organizing a March for Our Lives event this Saturday in Arcata at 3:30. So it's just, inspiring to see, teenagers coming out to kind of take action about these things. So that is an opportunity to go out and be in public about this, about gun violence, and to support these teenagers who are so courageous and really moving forward with action. So thanks to them for that.
All right. With that, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks.